Love podcasts, hate nonsense. It's the PoliticsJOE podcast, ladies and gentlemen. I've got such bad news. Ollie was listening to the Ezra Klein show and had forgot his AirPods. So he was struck down by wet streeting.
We have caught and compromised Ollie Dugmore.
Citizen, stop. Citizen, stop. So he's in the gulag in a dark void. But thankfully, I am joined by Seán Hickey. Hello.
Hello.
Laura Beveridge. Hello.
Hello.
How are you doing?
Good, thank you.
Fabulous. Happy International Workers' Day.
Happy International Workers' Day. Happy May Day.
May Day.
How are we doing this fine May Day morning?
Fabulous.
Feeling
Sun's
refreshed?
out.
I am. The sun is making me feel very good.
Have we washed our face with the morning dew? Have we done that?
Of course, man.
Every day.
Of course. You've got the ties out again for the second day in a row.
Yeah, it's hot. It's hot. And
There's less fabric on you than there was yesterday.
Yeah, they're getting shorter and shorter every day.
I'm not actually wearing anything. I don't know if people watching can see my shorts at all. But
If you could.
But it would be very funny if I was just wearing just like tiny gym shorts.
It's really sexy, listener. Really sexy.
We are here to talk about Louis Theroux's documentary, The Settlers, which has caused a lot of people being normal about, believe it or not.
Yep.
I watched it last night in an interesting double feature. I watched Warfare at the cinema, hot-tailed at home to watch The Settlers, which is an interesting combination.
There's half a theme there.
Yeah, I think there's a theme.
Yeah.
War.
What's it good for?
Absolutely nothing.
Ed's Entertainment on a Wednesday night.
War Wednesdays. How do we want to get into this? Should we talk about how you guys watched it? Is that
In the office on company time.
Did you?
Yeah.
Oh,
Did you?
Parts of it. I was picking out the clips that we're going to react to.
okay.
I watched it at home.
Good.
Yeah, for my
In your own time?
in my own time.
Good man.
Yeah. On Monday, I think. It's a tough watch. I mean, it's quite similar to his previous West Bank documentary, with the added context of the post October 23 world. But yeah, it's an interesting piece of work.
Yes, I think as a kind of companion piece to the 2011 documentary, I think is when it first came out.
Yeah.
Maybe 2010. But the way, to me, the settlers were kind of treated in 2010 as a bit of a curiosity.
Yeah, I feel like they were treated almost like a fringe group. Like settlers were this kind of fringe, and then there's been this shift in the most recent piece, which is actually showing how mainstream their ideology has become within the governing party of Israel.
And I wonder if it serves a purpose. If it serves a different purpose, I am entirely guessing here, but Louis Theroux seemed angrier in this. For example, in the climax in the film, he does say to Daniela Weiss, "I think that's sociopathic."
Yes.
He editorializes in a way that he doesn't typically tend to. He's more like I think, as we all are, we're Louis Theroux fans, but he doesn't ever seem to be like, "I think you are a bad person," or anything like that. He kind of just lets the audience make up their own minds.
I mean, what you see a lot in the documentary is how, separately from the 2011 one, how his treatment by the Israeli state is quite heavy-handed in comparison to what it was when the situation was less hot, right? So I think you combine that with some of the scenes in the documentary, some of the things that he is having a first-hand experience of, and then hanging around with somebody who's directly responsible for the situation that he's documenting. I think you can. I mean, you should be impartial. You should be kind of the fly on the wall, letting your subjects explain their situation themselves. But I think people like Daniela Weiss are very different characters to what he usually has in his documentaries. So maybe I'd give him this one. He's all right.
I wasn't criticizing.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I know. But it is interesting to see him. Like, there's even. I mean, we're going to look at clips anyway, but there's the scene where the settler from Brooklyn pulls over and he has an IDF soldier kind of like guiding him up the road to chat to him. And he's like, get your hands off me, don't touch me, don't touch me. But he's like very agitated by it rather than just being like, no, I'm a journalist. Like he's not timid and coy, you know. He's a lot more brisk.
I think, sorry, go ahead.
No.
I was gonna say, I think like that was one of the things that was really interesting to me is how from the one in 2011, the main characters were kind of just the settlers, but then in this one I felt like the Israeli state itself was quite like a looming presence and character in it, from all the checkpoints and soldiers, like even though he's there talking to the settlers and the Palestinians that live in occupied territories, just there is a looming presence of IDF soldiers and constantly like hanging over everything they're doing and interfering almost in everything they're doing as well.
I think in this documentary, like Louis Theroux's characters are typically fringe. They aren't normally so big. It's not normally about a fringe weirdo who is having direct effect on how a governance and war is being conducted. So I think his behavior or his treatment of it is appropriately weighty. I think if you've been paying attention to the situation in Israel, as I imagine most of our audience has been, you won't really have learned anything new necessarily. But I thought what it was really effective was actually showing how confusing, discombobulating, like Kafkaesque the system is. I think, and actually seeing there's a really striking visual, I think, in Hebron and no comment was made about it, but there was 2 Israeli girls escorted up the street by 4 soldiers, and I think it was just Louis, his crew, and the Palestinian man who was showing them around on the street. And I thought that was a really that was a really effective visual there. It was just alienating the whole thing.
It's like you didn't need the dramatic like hot violence that we do see coming out of Gaza. Like in the West Bank, there's this like everyday attritional violence that just affects everything they do. Like I think they even mentioned like to get to school or the shops, they have to show their passports. Like they're constantly having to justify themselves and where they are and where they're going. And I think there was a scene that I think we spoke about that stood out to us all when Louis is visiting a Palestinian peace activist in Hebron, and there's just checkpoints that he has to go through constantly. And I think that was one of the scenes that just really stood out to me. It was such a small thing, but it is quite, it's like quite dehumanizing the way that it's treated.
Because that's the thing, isn't it? Like our audience are familiar with the situation by and large. I think the difference between being familiar with how Palestinians in the West Bank in particular live and seeing firsthand how they live are 2 very different things. Like one of the things that's at the ICC at the moment is about breaches of human rights of West Bank Palestinians outside of people who live in Gaza as well. And part of it is that it is an apartheid regime that is being enforced on Palestinians in the West Bank. But without knowing any detail of it, and then you see kind of the thing of like the journalist in Hebron where he's like, oh yeah, no, I've brought you here, but I have to go the whole other way around because I'm not allowed through this particular door here. Or things like the guy where they're hiding from, well, not hiding, but they're kind of sheltering from the IDF at nighttime. And it's like the thing of Louis like, should we not just call the police? And he's like, what police would be coming here to get rid of the IDF? Like, do you know what I mean?
The state are not there to help me.
Exactly. Yeah, it was
the bravado as well of the soldiers and the swagger, which kind of knocked me a bit sick.
Yeah,
of like there's 2 wearing balaclavas in Hebron, and they're really young as well. The soldiers are like 30 years younger than Louis. They're like really young, like, and saying, "I am bigger than the police here.
Yeah,
you do what I say."
Yeah,
it was like just very, very unsettling.
But also the brazenness of the the kind of the two-tier system of it, right?
Yeah,
Where the first thing they ask him is if he's Arab or not. And then they're like, and then he's like, no, I'm a journalist for the BBC. Like, oh, right, okay, then don't worry then.
Yeah.
Like, that's
not
okay.
What are you doing here? What are you doing here? Why are you them? Why are you them? I think if the audience hasn't read it, I think a good companion piece to this, if you're not going to watch Warfare, is the book A Day in the Life of Abed Salama. Did you read that ahead of the? I think Ollie interviewed the authors, which is an excellent interview. Have you read it, Seán?
I haven't read the book. I was here for the interview,
and it talks about Abed Salama's son. So Abed Salama is a man who lives in the West Bank, and his son is in a bus accident on a school trip, and it just explores how like the setup and the system in Israel and the West Bank just inhibits a child's life being saved. Just absolutely, it's the arbitrariness of the system. Like, can the Palestinian ambulances use the Israeli roads? And you're like, there are children dying in this situation, and people are sticking to this Byzantine system of rules.
Definitely watch that interview if you haven't.
Yes, absolutely.
I think that raises a good point as well, though, that like there have been Palestinian journalists and other journalists as well documenting what's been going on in Palestine for a very long time. A Day in the Life of Abed Salama, or the Oscar-winning documentary No Other Land, which was made joint effort between an Israeli and Palestinian filmmaker. But I wonder, could only Louis Theroux have made the documentary he made, and does it make it more accessible, or bring it to an audience that maybe aren't engaging with things that are being made by Palestinian journalists themselves?
In a British sense, yeah. I think, like, I mean, if you're winning Oscars for documentaries, that's quite a big platform to be on in the first place. But Louis Theroux, obviously, as a documentary maker, is like Premier League. So him doing a documentary like that, him exposing the situation as it is, yeah, certainly bringing it to a wider audience, an audience that may not necessarily be exposed to what's going on there. But it's like, I mean, yeah, go ahead.
This has just occurred to me. He in his media presence is kind of acting like Ed Davey. In that Ed Davies doing the silly stuff, Ed Davies going down the water slides, like challenging Keir Starmer to a game of FIFA. Louis Theroux's going on chicken shop dates, doing the viral rap, achieving this kind of cult following. And then people are like, I love Louis Theroux. He's so funny. I'm going to stick on his new documentary. Holy shit. Like, that is the exact tactics that the Lib Dems are hoping for with Ed Davey. Because I think there's been like a lot, like Louis Theroux's, we are talking about him as if we know him, or I am, certainly. And I feel like
if we started calling him Louis, it'd be a different thing.
True. I literally just did. Mr. Theroux. I think like he's like a... I always wonder, actually, surely the people that Louis Theroux is making a documentary about, I always think they must know who he is and what he's attempting to do. But then, like, one of them, one of the settlers is like, "Is it Louis or Lewis?"
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, buddy, you do not know what you've let yourself in for."
I've also think he's been very, very well known in the UK for a very long time, and then post like Chicken Shop Date has been so big in the US. I feel now he couldn't go and make the weird weekends he used to make in the US, because I think he would be too well known there now. But I feel like outside of like those worlds, he probably can't.
But maybe they just know him as like the money don't jiggle jiggle guy. Like, they don't know that he's a documentary maker. Do you know what I mean?
I did see like this tweet from an American girl who was like, Amelia de Molenberg really saved this guy's career.
I saw that as well. I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? Yeah. I think the answer, if Louis Theroux would like to make a documentary about you, I think the answer is no. If he came to you and said, I'd like to make a documentary about you, what are you guys saying?
Yeah, I'd probably say no.
Laura?
I'd say no as well.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. If anyone wants to make a documentary about you, it's not because you're being normal. Should we have look at any clips?
Yeah.
What should we start with?
Let's start with the Daniela Weiss clip.
Roll the clip.
Do you have influence over government?
No question. Who did all this?
Can you call Netanyahu?
What do you mean? Like this? No, I call his aid.
So the idea is to force the government by putting people, starts with small settlements, then they get bigger, then they get recognized by the state of Israel, and basically creating a new demographic reality.
We do not force a government. We do for governments what they cannot do for themselves.
So Daniela Weiss there is sort of the main villain of the piece. Is that fair to say? I think what is especially illustrative there is she characterizes the normalization of settlers and settlement within the Israeli state. Like, as they remind you every time, it is illegal under international law. It's illegal under Israeli law, until which point that Israel recognizes it.
Yeah.
Which doesn't seem like a fair law, to be honest, believe it or not.
Yeah.
What did we make of Daniela?
I think it's interesting what Louis shows is, like I was saying earlier, just how close and how much her ideology is now mainstream within the governing party of Israel. Like when she's mentioning that she can just call Netanyahu's aides, or when she's like this line that we're not forcing the government to do anything, we're doing what they're not allowed to do, on the international stage.
We're making it easy for them.
Yeah. And I thought that was very telling.
Yeah, in the founding charter of the party of Benjamin Netanyahu, it declares between the sea and the Jordan River, there will only be Israeli sovereignty. So it's written it's like the Marxist clause in the Labour Party. It's like that is a central foundation of the party that is governing Israel.
So
Not Netanyahu's party with from the river to the sea.
I was just thinking that.
That's interesting, isn't it?
It's kind of the opposite. Well, it's from the sea to the river. So
Settlements we will
guys.
deliver.
So it is the opposite, and it is, I think, what the critics of this documentary have said. Well, this is just a fringe movement, a fringe ideology. How fringe is it if it's in government?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not
It's
fringe.
completely disingenuous.
It's totally
to say
mainstream.
fringe.
It's
Yeah.
totally
I think-
mainstream.
Yeah, and some of the people that are in that ruling party were once seen by the Israeli government themselves as genuine extremists.
Yes.
And now they are the governing party.
There was one of the, I can't remember which minister it was, but one of, like, a cabinet minister was speaking at one of the parties that they threw at the opening of a new settlement.
Oh, it's Ben Gvir, isn't it? No, it's not Ben Gvir. It is Smotrich is in the documentary at some point.
And it's just like this. So you're being welcomed in by literally just the arms of the state, and also like Daniela isn't acting like she's a fringe person. She's acting like she is so confident and sure of herself. At one point, she's tried to drive into Gaza.
Yeah.
She tries to slip her military escort, and it's just, I can do this, and there's no repercussions.
Yeah.
So that was like a real through line throughout it, or maybe that was one thing that I found particularly shocking, was just the emphasis on how there are absolutely no repercussions for this.
Yeah.
Like at one point they mention Palestinians being murdered by.
Ben Gvir is in the documentary. Sorry, not Smotrich.
At one point they mention a Palestinian being killed by a settler, and the guy got away with it. So they're living in this lawlessness. They're like totally endorsed by the state, protected by the state. They get money from the state, and they also get to kill people.
Yep.
I think that's why there seems a lot of the reaction there's been in the UK about how Louis he's not being impartial, he's not being fair, he's not being balanced. It feels so disingenuous once you say, well, this is the governing party. Like, there isn't a both sides to this, because there is only one governing party. There's one group with the legitimate monopoly on violence that can impact everyone's life. So it feels so disingenuous when you're like, well, why haven't you interviewed X, Y, and Z?
But if the documentary is about settlers and you're speaking to the primo settler, the woman who has Netanyahu's aides on speed dial, who says that her entire raison d'etre is to make recognizing settlements in the West Bank easy for the government, You can't say, well, we need to get the other side of this. This is the documentary. This is the point of the documentary. You've got arguably the best guest that you could possibly hope for on the subject. You're not like digging a hole for her. She's doing it herself.
I wonder if it's like the kind of British media brain where we've come to associate fairness and impartiality with the idea of balance, like with the idea of both sidesing everything.
Yes.
Like it's like the original example is during the climate change debates like 10 years ago, whenever they had, here's or even like vaccines, like here's like 99% of scientists saying something, and then they'd give 50% of the airtime to the 1% saying something else.
Yeah.
And it feels like that now has become how people think news media should be, or that that's the right way for it to be, even though for something to be true, objective, fair, you don't need to have that.
It's difficult to see how you could both sides this on the one side.
I mean, there even is like the anti-settlement Israelis protesting one of the things on the border of Gaza at some point. So like you've got that. You've got the Palestinians living in the occupied West Bank. What is the other side that you're looking for?
Actually, Palestinians throw rocks.
Right, okay. That's what the settlers are saying.
That's just as bad.
But the settlers are saying that in the documentary. Do you know what I mean? So like, how many more sides do you need? Like,
yeah, no, it is like, how do you're trying to equate like a state backed by the West, the largest military in the world, enacting a system of total unfairness, separation, apartheid, forcing people to comply with totally arbitrary checks. People aren't able to go out the door without presenting their passport to a teenager with a gun, treated with contempt, disrespect. Your entire lives are governed at the whim of soldiers, and on the other side, you get children throwing rocks at you sometimes. Like, how on earth can you possibly equate those two things equally?
How could you? Yeah, I think the bias thing it's just the simplest defense when you look at this documentary, is that you can't, there's nothing that you can possibly say to redeem the situation for this part of the settler community, in general the settler community in the first place, because again, as you said earlier on, it is a breach of international law to do this. And so without people who are genuinely pro the maintenance and ramping up of that kind of ideology in Israel, without reversing your entire principle on that, you need to just come up with something pathetic to say. And that excuse is you're only showing one side, or you're being biased or anti-Semitic.
I think that criticism, again, like feels so disingenuous when, like, to say criticizing the settlers or like the Netanyahu government is to criticize like the concept of Israel or Judaism is quite insane. And like, it's a disservice to all the Israelis who believe in a two-state solution, who are peaceful, and to like Jewish people who don't believe in what they're carrying out in Gaza. Like, it feels really disingenuous to say that like to criticize them is to criticize all these groups who actually completely disavow what the West Bank settlers are doing.
Yeah, especially because I think it's quite clear that all the settlers have been radicalized. Like, it's not a rational thing to do. Like, if you are one of the, I suppose the one maybe rational part of it is housing is cheap. That's, some people are moving there for cheap housing. Not everyone who moves there is like an ultra. Is that? I suppose by engaging with it, you are complicit in this ideology. But
if you're moving from Brooklyn to the West Bank,
yes,
because you can get a free house.
Yes,
absolutely. There is no way that you aren't aware that a Palestinian family is getting kicked out of theirs for you to move in.
But there's a difference. There's a spectrum of it. If you are if you're founding a settlement, and Louis Theroux meets a horse wrangler who lives in kind of an open shack with his 8 children, which I think is a social services issue. Like, that's insane. Like, you are living in presumably like an unair conditioned shack with all living on top of each other, and you don't have doors.
No.
And you're living next to like animals It's that is you have been, and you think that is a fine thing to do with your family. You've been totally radicalized. Like in Britain, if someone moved to like I suppose we can't really transfer this exact situation onto Britain, but if someone went into like the
Imagine,
Highlands,
if you will, Northern Ireland. We said to every Presbyterian in Scotland.
Okay, I'm thinking more from like the house. If someone was building like I'm building an off-grid settlement in the Highlands, and here are my 9 children, and we're here because God says so. That's a cult, and you would be treated as dangerous.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be given sustenance by the state. You wouldn't be supported in your mission. The Prime Minister wouldn't be going, great job, lads. That is God's land.
But it is.
You're absolutely right.
It's like is it Daniela Weiss's organization, or is it someone else's organization that had like convoys of caravans that would be set up near Palestinian towns that like this is the temporary living for all of you guys. We're just getting rid of them. In a year's time, you'll move in there. Again, it's mental to think that you'd be willing to uproot every aspect of your life in a different country, different continent.
Yep.
To go and contribute to a system of displacement, of apartheid, of like 2-tier society because God told you to. Or because somebody in your church told you that they know a guy in Israel that's doing that, and you might get something out of it. It's terrifying. It's terrifying to see. And also like there's the I think one of the most interesting characters in the whole hour is, I don't know if are we looking at that clip? I don't think we are. The Texan guy.
Yes.
Yeah.
That like is walking around his house in fatigues and has an AK strapped to him. And you're like, where does the Zionist settler end and the Texan begin? Which are you more?
Yeah.
Which are you more? You know.
Have you been radicalized by the American public school system? That was just the casualness with which they wore guns as well. And that was the consequence for the guy who shot the Palestinian. He got his gun license taken off. That was the only consequence.
Yeah.
I think he should be in prison.
Yeah.
He was an interesting character, and it was like, but it was also the banality of what he had constructed. Like he constructed like a venue for corporate functions and weddings, and doing a war crime to do that.
Yep.
You're violating the Geneva Convention because you want to set up like a wedding venue, and you don't think that's bad. It's the brazenness or the dismissiveness of doing something very, very, very serious. I don't know how you can describe the Geneva Convention if not a very serious document. I personally would never violate it, but it just being like, well, I want to set up like I've always dreamed of opening a wedding venue. Where should I do? Where do I live? I live in Austin. It's quite expensive here.
Bethlehem.
It does make you think, like, why are there Brits that are engaging with their arguments with any form of legitimacy? Like, as in, if you believe in the 2-state solution, which is the mainstream government view in the UK, why are you then engaging with the Israeli government in the way that we're engaging when they quite clearly do not believe in that, as you can see from their charter? Like, we shouldn't really be engaging at all with until
the British government has broken ties with states for far less than what the Israeli government is doing.
Yeah, and it's also, well, if you're engaging with, like, if you're reacting to the criticism of Louis Theroux's documentary, what Louis Theroux is doing is like, these people are breaching the Geneva Convention. Like, why not? What do you mean? They're breaching the Geneva Convention and they're not sorry about it. Like, well, that's sample bias.
Yeah.
That's sample bias, actually.
Do you think any clips of this are going to be shown in The Hague?
Oofed. I think in schools, like adolescents. I think this would be a good one to show in schools.
It would be.
It'd be much more useful than adolescence.
I watched Louis Theroux documentaries in school.
Did I? I think I might have done, but in transition year.
What's transition year? How old are you?
You were like 14
What are you transitioning to?
into a man.
Oh.
Yeah. No, you have traditionally in Irish secondary school, you got 5 years, but you can do 6. Some schools have a compulsory 4th year. Most schools have an optional 4th year. So it's just moving from your GCSE
Right.
into your A-level cycle.
Got you.
A-level cycle is, how many years is it here? 2 years?
We don't
We
do
didn't do A-levels.
It's the same thing. People who did not do the same thing. No, it's not.
Is it
actually.
not?
No.
No.
Different system. Idiot.
But what is it, like a 2-year
Idiot.
thing?
No.
It's like a 2-year thing.
A-levels are 2 years, though.
Yes.
Right. Yeah, so it's the same system. But
But
we've
not
got
in
a 4th year
Scotland.
where we do
It's
it.
not. It's different in Scotland, actually.
No.
So all the
Drop a
Scots.
comment if you've done TY as well and you're Irish. Not if, like, you wouldn't have done TY if you weren't Irish.
Let us know how many standard grades you have.
What was the documentary you watched?
It was. Did you do? Oh well, you did. I'm assuming the curriculum would have changed by the time you did higher modern studies. If you did higher modern
I
studies,
did higher modern studies, yeah.
Did you do South Africa?
No, we did China.
Okay. Different
Higher
places.
modern studies.
Modern studies is it's actually a really good subject.
Yeah,
it's
it's
kind of like sociology and
And like
politics.
civic studies as well.
Yeah, it's like contemporary events.
Yeah.
Right.
Like-
Yeah, I don't really know how to because you learned about like
You learned about like voting systems.
the,
and,
how the NHS works.
yeah,
Oh, it's like
how the welfare
CSP.
state works.
What's CSP?
Civic, social, political education.
Oh yeah, it's
Yes,
definitely like
it's-
that.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's-
But,
It is that.
but you do this in your senior cycle of high school.
It's
You can do it like throughout high school, but I only did
Right.
it for a year.
did you do the crash hire?
Yeah.
We had a junior cert exam in it. It was the one exam that is told to you if you don't do art as an option. It's the one exam that you're told like you're guaranteed an A in this. You just need to-
really?
Yeah. I got a D.
You've got a D in modern studies.
So you have this this project that you have to do. I can't remember what the name of it was. It's that long ago. But essentially you have to do some sort of like fundraising or charity thing or whatever. And so a lot of people in my school there's this running in Dublin called Darkness into Light. It starts at like 5 o'clock in the morning. It's a 10-kilometer run. It ends when the sun is coming up, and it's to raise money for the Pieta House, which is like a suicide charity.
Right.
And so it's like the metaphor of being in the dark and then the sun rises. And you have to write this report on it when you've done the run. And me and my friend Connor, we sat next to each other for the whole project. And we would get so close to finishing it and just draw a massive cock on the thing. And it's like...
Nice to know you take men's mental health so seriously, Sean.
It's not a report. It's not a report for Pieta House. It was like a state exam paper. So you have to like throw out state exam paper after state exam paper, start it again. And so
you would draw it on your own paper.
no. He'd get, let's say Connor's like 2 pages off finishing his
Right, and
report.
you just
I'd draw a massive dick on his. And he'd be like, right, I have to start this again now.
Oh.
He'd start it again. Now this counted for like 60% of your final grade. So like by the time the deadline was coming up, we were just like rushing through the whole thing. You're like, yeah, I raised this amount of money. I ran this much, blah, 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 blah. Like no
That
effort
is
gone
so
into it at
funny.
all. Like getting agonizingly close every single time. And then just like, I don't know, looking that way and looking back and the front page of it has a dick on it.
I must say, dudes rock.
Dudes do rock.
That is sick. Things like that happen at your school?
Absolutely not.
No. Or I went to an all-girls school. Boys in education, absolutely no. It's unfair because I think you went to an all-boys school, didn't you?
Yeah.
I think
I went to a mixed primary school though.
I went to mixed. I went to normal schools. I went to mixed the whole way through because we're not scared of girls. But I do think there's like they use girls as like a crutch for like badly behaved boys. Like they put like you put like the
absolutely.
most sensible girl next to like the worst behaved boy, and she comes out with her shoulders covered in dicks, like bag turned inside
That was just
out.
me in primary school.
Aww. Should we
This
get?
is gonna pacify this boy. Absolutely not.
He's just going to torment this girl. This girl's going to go home in tears because Sean has drawn a penis on her shirt. People used to do that all the time. Draw penises on her shirt.
Oh, on like the back of the collar.
Or like on the sleeve.
Yeah,
like, it was
yeah,
insane.
yeah.
Oh.
Oh,
What's wrong with us?
What fun. There was a guy in my class, Carl, he was a fantastic drawer.
You're also real naming these people.
he used to draw this dick. It was like the penis was the nose and the balls were the chin. And so it had glasses and a bazooka and hair and all this kind of thing. Do you know what I'll do? I'll text him when we get out of the record and ask him to draw it and send it to me. And I'll put it in the Reddit.
This is just a scene from Superbad.
Yeah, I'm just thinking that. Yeah.
He used to do some of the most fantastic drawings. They were so good, so creative. I think he drew it once on an interactive whiteboard, which famously doesn't rub out.
That is unbelievable. That is. Oh, I love when you talk about your school. Shall we get back to talking about the documentary? When's Louis Theroux making his documentary about drawing penises? That's what I want to know.
That's the question we all want to know.
That's what I want to know. Any other thoughts before we leave it?
Well, we've only done one clip, haven't we?
Yes, we have covered a lot.
Yeah, that's true. How long have we been running for? 39 minutes. That's loads, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Any other points? We can edit this out.
I think just to touch on the Mohammed Harani bit, because that's like what we were saying earlier on about like not seeing the reality of it, but being aware through writing or through politicians or activists speaking about this lived experience of West Bank Palestinians. When you see the scene with Louis, the crew, and the activist Mohammed Harani, where the kind of basically being held hostage by the IDF, and you see like the lasers coming in the windows and all this kind of thing, and just like the desperation and fear of someone like Louis Theroux contrasted with this is normal day-to-day occurrences for me is terrifying.
Yeah, that was I suppose that was the theme of it. It's just like the casualness with which they accepted the harassment from the soldiers on every level. Like Louis was getting frustrated by it, and I think in most, I think in every circumstance when you saw the Palestinians interact with the state, they just accepted it. There was a scene where the olive farmer is being prevented from harvesting his olives. Like he is an olive farmer; they belong to him. And the army comes along and says, "You need warrants to do this," which isn't true. And it's the Israeli activists who are getting angry and standing up to it. And that was very illustrative of these people are not prepared to listen to the Palestinians. You need to be Israeli or you need to be a Westerner to advocate for them, because they're just not going to listen to the people who are being oppressed. They just don't value you.
I think that was like the everyday violence was just the thing that stood out the most to me. And like a lot of the language that you heard the West Bank settlers using about the Palestinians was just so dehumanizing. It really did make you lose kind of any hope that there will be a recognition of each other as people.
Yes. Yeah. If that sentiment is being mainlined into the government, then what chance is there of any peace, of any hope? Yeah. On that note, should we leave it there?
Yeah.
Let's leave it there.
Cock story to lighten the mood.
Another cock story.
Thank you everyone for listening. Thank you guys.
Thank you, Ed.
Participating. Thank you for doing this on company time.
Always. My pleasure.
Let us know if there's any other content you'd like us to discuss in media. And
tell us to watch something on
Yeah,
on the clock.
Could be anything.
Yeah.
Could be watching an episode of Doctor Who. Because someone on subreddit told me to. Join us over in the subreddit for some good faith discussion and memes. There are fewer memes than there used to be.
Yeah, more memes.
Someone's turned off the tap. Can we demand that?
More memes.
Yeah.
Well, we're demanding it now. More memes.
Yes.
Now.
Or there's no more podcast. Or the podcast is
I was
cancelled.
about to send in your most creative dick drawing. But then we just kind of have to go through hundreds of
I don't
drawings.
think we can ask that because it would just be like, I drew Seán as a clock. And that's not something for HR reasons I think we can condone. So
I
please
will ask Carl to do his one though.
Yes. Yeah. Thanks everyone. Hope you have a good bank holiday.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh shit, that's going to be so much fun.
Yes.
But it's cloudy now for the rest of the weekend, isn't it?
Oh, boo.
I wish we should just go to work. Okay, anyway. Bye-bye, everybody. We'll see you
Bye.
later.